fire this baby up.
So this is 8 after 16?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. 16 was an addition. I think we're back on the original now, and then we'll be in another edition here.
Yes.
Okay.
A couple of chapters.
Go.
Let copies of the decree be posted conspicuously in all the kingdom, and let all the Jews be ready on that day to fight against their enemies. So the messengers on horseback set out with all speed to perform what the king had commanded. And the decree was published also in Susa. Mordecai went out dressed in the royal robe and wearing a gold crown and a turban of purple linen. The people in Susa rejoiced on seeing him, and the Jews had light and gladness in every city and province wherever the decree was published. Wherever the proclamation was made, the Jews had joy and gladness, a banquet and a holiday, and many of the Gentiles were circumcised and became Jews out of fear of the Jews. So I go on to
Yes.
Okay. Now on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is Adar, the decree written by the king arrived. On that same day, the enemies of the Jews perished. No one resisted because they feared them. The chief provincial governors, the princes, and the royal secretaries were paying honor to the Jews because fear of Mordecai weighed upon them. The king's decree required that Mordecai's name be held in honor throughout the kingdom. Now in the city of Susa, the Jews killed 500 people, including Farsinestein, Delphon, Phasca, Faradatha, Berea, Sarbaka, Marmasima, Areopagus, Arceus, Zebuthius, the 10 sons of Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Bogian, the enemy of the Jews, and they indulged themselves in plunder.
I might just interject here that it says that the Bogian, the Jews, great. That almost sounds like boogeyman.
I know.
The boogeyman of the Jews.
That very day, the number of those killed in Susa was reported to the king. The king said to Esther, "In Susa, the capital, the Jews have destroyed 500 people. What do you suppose they have done in the surrounding countryside? Whatever more you ask will be done for you." And Esther said to the king, "Let the Jews be allowed to do the same tomorrow. Also hang up the bodies of Haman's 10 sons." So he permitted this to be done and handed over to the Jews of the city the bodies of Haman's sons to hang up. The Jews who were in Susa gathered on the 14th and killed 300 people but took no plunder. Now the other Jews in the kingdom gathered to defend themselves and got relief from their enemies. They destroyed 15,000 of them but did not engage in plunder. On the 14th day they rested and made that same day a day of rest, celebrating it with joy and gladness. The Jews who were in Susa, the capital, came together also on the 14th but did not rest. They celebrated the 15th with joy and gladness. On this account, then, the Jews who are scattered around the country outside Susa keep the 14th of Adar as a joyful holiday and send presents of food to one another, while those who live in the large cities keep the 15th day of Adar as their joyful holiday, also sending presents to one another. Mordecai recorded these things in a book and sent it to the Jews in the kingdom of Artaxerxes, both near and far, telling them that they should keep the 14th and 15th days of Adar, for on these days the Jews got relief from their enemies. The whole month, namely Adar, in which their condition had been changed from sorrow into gladness and from a time of distress to a holiday, was to be celebrated as a time for feasting and gladness and for sending presents of food to their neighbors and to the poor. So the Jews accepted what Mordecai had written to them, how Haman son of Hammedatha the Macedonian fought against them, how he made a decree and cast lots to destroy them, and how he went in to the king telling him to hang Mordecai. But the wicked plot he had devised against the Jews came back upon himself, and he and his sons were hanged. Therefore these days were called Purim. Purim.
Purim.
I've heard it both ways. How do you say it?
Purim.
Purim. Called Purim, because of the lots. For in their language this is the word that means lots. And so because of what was written in this letter, and because of what they had experienced in this affair and what had befallen them, Mordecai established this festival. And the Jews took it upon themselves, upon their descendants, and upon all who would join them, to observe it without fail. These days of Purim should be a memorial and kept from generation to generation, in every city, family, and country. These days of Purim were to be observed for all time, and the commemoration of them was never to cease among their descendants. Then Queen Esther, daughter of Aminadab, along with Mordecai the Jew, wrote down what they had done and gave full authority to the letter about Purim. And Mordecai and Queen Esther established this decision on their own responsibility, pledging their own well-being to the plan. Esther established it by a decree forever, and it was written for a memorial. The king levied a tax upon his kingdom, both by land and sea, The king levied a tax upon his kingdom both by land and sea. And as for his power and bravery, and the wealth and glory of his kingdom, they were recorded in the annals of the kings of the Persians and the Medes. Mordecai acted with authority on behalf of King Artaxerxes and was great in the kingdom, as well as honored by the Jews. His way of life was such as to make him beloved to his whole nation. And Mordecai said, "These things have come from God, for I remember the dream that I had concerning these matters, and none of them has failed to be fulfilled. There was the little spring that became a river, and there was light and sun and abundant water. The river is Esther, whom the king married and made queen. The two dragons are Haman and myself. The nations are those that gathered to destroy the name of the Jews. And my nation, this is Israel, who cried out to God, was saved. The Lord has saved his people. The Lord has rescued us from all these evils. God has done great signs and wonders that have never happened among the nations. For this purpose he made 2 lots, one for the people of God and one for all the nations. And these 2 lots came to the hour and moment and day of decision before God and among all the nations. And God remembered his people and vindicated his inheritance. So they will observe these days in the month of Adar on the 14th and 15th of that month, with an assembly and joy and gladness before God, from generation to generation forever among his people Israel. In the 4th year of the reign of Ptolemy and Cleopatra, Dysothius, who said that he was a priest and a Levite, and his son Ptolemy, brought to Egypt the preceding letter about Purim, which they said was authentic and had been translated by Lysimachus, son of Ptolemy, one of the residents of Jerusalem.
Wow. You had some, aren't you glad you read last week and not this?
I was just thinking that.
There's some.
So they still celebrate that holiday, that
Purim?
occasion?
Oh, yes. Purim's a big deal. It's kind of like Christmas, I guess. Exchange gifts and...
Because it says the 12th month. I know that way back then they had one calendar, and then as time progressed on, they changed the calendar.
Right.
Because the ones watching the stars and the moons and the sun, they can see that, well, it's not right. It's not, the days aren't following properly.
Well, I think Purim is celebrated earlier in the year because Hanukkah is the December thing. But did anyone find it interesting that when this edict went out, what did the Jews do? They started killing the other people.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it's these people just can't stop from killing each other. You know, they were killing the Jews, and then the Jews got power, and they started killing everybody else.
Good thing we don't do that anymore.
Yeah, we live in peace and harmony. So I think, you know the story of Hatfields and McCoys.
Yeah.
You know, they fought for generations to a point that they didn't know why they were fighting.
Yeah.
And I think this is true in a lot of Middle East countries.
Mm-hmm.
One of the problems that we had with Afghanistan during one of our wars over there, Afghanistan is made up of a bunch of tribes. And so you can't sign a peace treaty with Afghanistan. You got to sign it with each one of these tribes. And if you don't get all of them to agree, and some of those tribes have hostilities that date back generations. And boy, you know, it's like when we were reading Genesis, Exodus, Deuteronomy. Remember that there are a lot of those people in there that, for some reason or another, they were still angry and they were carrying that anger. You know, we just had a group who hate Jews that met in the campus of UCLA just yesterday. And, you know, now the university is trying to figure out how are we going to deal with anti-Semitism on campus. I mean, I don't know how you change somebody's heart. I mean, I would imagine that they're still relatives of the Hatfields and McCoys. They're still fighting. You know, they develop a hatred for the other group. And it's not, the same thing was true with Native American tribes.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we think of the Native Americans as being peaceful, and some of the tribes were, but some of them were vicious. And they would conquer another tribe and take their women and children and plunder their camp. And, you know, we've got to recognize that this may be part of human nature.
Well, that's why we have football now.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Charles.
circus.
Yeah.
In Afghanistan, isn't the religion mostly Muslim?
Yes, but there's two types of Muslim.
The
There's the
Sikh and the Shiites or something?
Sunni and the
Shiites or something?
yeah, the Sunnis are one group, and this is a problem. You know, those are two groups
But
that
then there's some others like Kurds and so on.
that they just dislike one another. That's why when we went to Spain, they were very clear with us that we were conquered by Arabs. We weren't conquered by Muslims. It's the Arabs that came in. That encompasses that whole group peeling away a religious connection. Now, they did have mosques set up, but, you know, we saw some of those cathedrals in Portugal were originally, they were built, and then the Arabs came in and they became mosques, and the Arabs left and they became cathedrals again.
Well, I did some number study about history. Where did the number 0 come from? And if it was 4 minus 4, they didn't have 0. They just left the answer blank. And because the Arabs went out and around, is 1 through 9 is called the Arabic numbers. You look them up in Webster's, it calls them the Arabic. And what I studied, that 0 came out of Central America.
Well, the Arabic numbers stood in contrast to the Roman.
Yeah, Roman, and then the Egyptians too. Because they did their math, you had to study it and know it before you could really use it in business.
Roman numerals are interesting because not everybody agreed on Roman numerals. One of the one of the palaces when we were in Venice. The guide said, you know, it had a big clock with Roman numerals on it. I said, can you see what's wrong with that clock? And you look and you look and look. And he said, go through it by number. Well, there was two lines, three had 3 lines, 4 had 4 lines. It wasn't an IV, it had 4 lines. And he said, you know, the Romans couldn't even agree on numbers. So, and I imagine somebody went to battle over that. I mean, thankfully, we never had that kind of battle going on with churches. You know, when you look back to how people were treated, you know, in the colonies. I mean, if you weren't a fundamentalist, you were in trouble. So you went to Jamestown, where the Anglicans were. You could be anything you wanted. What do you believe? Well, what should I believe? Well, whatever you believe.
No, the one thing I notice is they cast lots. And we see that throughout the Bible, and even for Jesus' garments. Doesn't cast lots have a negative tone for casinos?
I don't know about, you know, with a casino, but casting lots was a universal thing. The Chinese used to cast lots to tell fortunes. I think the negative connotation for casinos is that's an easy way to lose your money.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know anybody who comes out of Las Vegas with the plus. I had a barber back in Michigan who 3 times a year, one of the casinos in Vegas would give him an airline ticket, fly him in, put him up in a room. He played poker, but he was one of those high stakes poker players. And I said, do you ever come out ahead? He goes, you know what, Larry, I have calculated, I keep track of my winnings and my losses. I have broken even. He said, actually, I've come out ahead because I got a free airplane ride and they put me up in a hotel. I said, now, they knew I wasn't going to stay in the room because I would spend, you know, all my time at the poker table. And he said, but I had some darn good meals. And, you know, if I wanted to relax before I catch the flight home, I could. But he said, you know, I was a high stakes gambler. But he said, I broke even.
That's
So,
good.
you know, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
entertainment.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to the Solomon, or what are we going to do?
Clarice, I think we move into
So we cast lots for
Yeah, we're going to have to cast lots. Yeah, the Wisdom of Solomon is the next one. And this is attributed to Solomon, although we know that Solomon was not the author. This is wisdom literature. And the Jews, the Hebrew people, did not have a concept of wisdom until we got closer to the time of Christ. And wisdom was the feminine part of God. And ruach means spirit. And the Hebrew word was ruach. And when you say it, you gotta, your breath sends out a spirit. And so this is an interesting thing because this is new to the Hebrew people. And, you know, that's why it was written in the AD time. It's in Greek, so we know it wasn't in the Hebrew Bible. And the importance of wisdom is that a lot of this wisdom writing reflects Greek philosophers, primarily Plato, and in some parts, Aristotle. So, yes.
Which one came first? Because one was, and then wasn't one a son or a student?
Well, Plato was a student of Socrates. Aristotle had Aristotle's foundation is different than Plato's.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, the first, what we would call great father of the Christian church, was Augustine. And Augustinian theology kind of mirrors Plato. Thomas Aquinas, the other great Roman thinker, his theology was much more in a line with Aristotle. I have just always felt that Plato was an embracer, to bring people in. Aristotle, not so much. Aristotelian philosophy was really a lot different than Platonic. But the same thing's true with the theology of Augustine and Thomas Aquinas.
Josephus, he was a journalist. Who was he? Roman or Greek or?
He was a Hebrew historian.
Hebrew historian. Okay.
So we're not going to have a bunch of hard names in here, but we are going to have. Good one. We're going to get started, and pretty soon it's going to say, God rewards the righteous and punishes the ungodly. So, this is some Roman Catholic theology there.
Coming from the Greeks.
Yes. Okay.
Well, I didn't understand that. What do you mean? But that's Catholic,
That what I just read?
or that God rewards or punishes the wicked? What did you say?
God rewards the righteous and punishes the ungodly.
And that's a Catholic view?
Well, yeah. If you think about what Lutheran theology was about, Luther said, you cannot earn righteousness.
Oh, I get it.
We're justified by faith
Okay.
in Jesus Christ. And that's not just Lutheran, but that's also Anglican, Presbyterian. Actually, Presbyterian doesn't really deal with that historically, because the Presbyterians believe in the elect. Some people are the elect and others aren't. Now, they won't admit that. But if you waterboard them, they'll say, yeah, that's one of the 5 tenets. But
Well, I must have skipped a step in there because I thought we're only righteous by Christ.
mhm.
So that is how we're upright.
Right, but remember, the Wisdom of Solomon was written after Christ, but it was not written for Christians.
So the definition of righteous is works.
Following the Lord. Yeah, works theology.
Oh, wow.
Following the Torah. And if you don't follow the Torah, you're unrighteous.
So
And-
this is sort of the opposite of James?
Yes. Yes, yes. And but this is a beautiful book.
Deep.
Yeah. I mean, there's some real theology in here. So let's.
Just that Josephus I was talking about, he before this Wisdom of Solomon here or after?
He was before. He wrote around the time of Christ because in his writings, he never identified Christ as the Son of God. In fact, he didn't talk about Jesus, but he did talk about Paul and some of the things that were going on historically. So, biblical scholars will always refer to Josephus to see if he's mentioning Paul or some of the other people, because he was an unbiased historian, although there's some who believe that he was a little biased because the Jesus event was substantial for the world. Okay, this starts off with a wonderful, wonderful saying.
Love righteousness, you rulers of the earth. Think of the Lord in goodness, and seek him with sincerity of heart, because he is found by those who do not put him to the test, and manifests himself to those who do not distrust him. For perverse thoughts separate people from God, and when his power is tested, it exposes the foolish, because wisdom will not enter a deceitful soul, or dwell in a body enslaved to sin. For a holy and disciplined spirit will flee from deceit, and will leave foolish thoughts behind, and will be ashamed at the approach of unrighteousness. For wisdom is a kindly spirit, but will not free blasphemers from the guilt of their words, because God is witness of their inmost feelings, and a true observer of their hearts, and a hearer of their tongues. Because the Spirit of the Lord has filled the world, and that which holds all things together knows what is said. Therefore those who utter unrighteous things will not escape notice, and justice, when it punishes, will not pass them by. For inquiry will be made into the counsels of the ungodly, and a report of their words will come to the Lord, to convict them of their lawless deeds. Because a jealous ear hears all things, and the sound of grumbling does not go unheard. Beware then of useless grumbling, and keep your tongue from slander, because no secret word is without result, and a lying mouth destroys the soul. Do not invite death by the error of your life, or bring on destruction by the works of your hands, because God did not make death, and he does not delight in the death of the living. For he created all things so that they might exist. The generative forces of the world are wholesome, and there is no destructive poison in them, and the dominion of Hades is not on earth, for righteousness is immortal. But the ungodly by their words and deeds summoned to death. Considering him a friend, they pined away and made a covenant with him, because they are fit to belong to his company. Should I go on?
No. There's a lot of stuff packed in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like Proverbs that, it's going to be hard when we get to some of these things. We have Proverbs, do good, be a good person, help others. And, but this is really kind of an alien thing to the Hebrew people, because he's talking about the Spirit, and they didn't deal with the Spirit the same way we do. We believe the Spirit was sent by God and Jesus and existed for all time. So we believe that it was the Spirit who enabled Moses to strike the rock and have water come forth. That it was the Spirit that was actually doing the work to provide the manna from heaven. We have a very firm theological basis as Christians for Spirit. We talk about, physicians will talk about if somebody's in the hospital and they've had a rough go. The physicians will sometimes say their spirit has been broken.
Mm.
When somebody, this happens with football teams, baseball teams. We would say, well, they just defeated themselves. Well, what happened was they didn't believe that the Spirit was with them. So, here we have this book that was not in the Hebrew Bible, but we cling to it in the Apocrypha. Now, this again is in the Catholic Bible. It's in the Orthodox Bible. It's not in our Bible. It's in part of the Apocrypha. But you can see, wisdom will not enter a shifty soul, nor make her home in a body that is mortgaged to sin. And you notice, what's the pronoun that's used there? Make her home. Wisdom is seen as the feminine aspect. And in some ways, I can see that. I mean, it kind of makes sense for me, because who lifts your spirit more than your mother? When a kid gets hurt, they don't say, "Where's my dad?" They say, "Where's my mom?" They want to go to their mommy. And even as adults, if you're really sick, I think, "God, I wish my mom was here. She would know what to do." She wouldn't, but it would. But if she just put her arms around me, that would all I need. So it's the spirit that lifts people. See, wisdom is a spirit devoted to man's good, and she will not hold a blasphemer blameless for his words. My mom never let me use some words. God is a witness to its innermost being, who sees clearly into the heart and hears every word he says. For the Spirit of the Lord fills the whole earth, and that which holds all things together is well aware of what men say. Hence no man can utter injustice and not be found out, nor will justice overlook him when she passes sentence. I mean,
What verse are you?
that was around 7, verse 7.
Okay.
My translation may be a little bit different than.
I don't find she.
Oh.
Me neither.
Okay, in my translation, it uses the word she, because wisdom is believed to be a feminine quality.
I run across, I'll talk about later.
The devices of a godless man will be brought to account, and report of his words will come before the Lord as proof of his iniquity. No muttered syllable escapes that vigilant ear. Beware of this futile grumbling, and avoid all bitter words. For even a secret whisper will not go unheeded. We as Christians believe the Spirit is with us all the time and sees us when we're doing something bad, and sees us when we're doing something good. And we trust the Spirit to direct us. That's a powerful thing. And that's why for Christians a triune God has significance. When we pray, we're praying to God, but sometimes we include the Son. And I know in most of my prayers I include the Spirit. When we pray for the sick, may the Spirit touch their bodies, give them strength, give them hope. That comes through the Spirit. A broken spirit is a tough thing, and you can break the spirit. I think a lot of times child abuse is not just physical; it's breaking the spirit of a child. So I do like the wisdom of Solomon. I mean, I think it's good stuff. We're close to, I don't know if we want to get into chapter 2 or not, but we're going to find this whole thing, every bit of it, really interesting. And I do turn to Ecclesiasticus occasionally, when I need to have my spirits picked up, because it's a hopeful book. So.
Now, Ecclesiasticus, which you said, is different from Ecclesiastes?
Yes.
We heard that the other day.
Yes, and out of all the words of the Bible, I have a hard time saying Ecclesiasticus because I always picture in my mind Ecclesiastes.
Yeah.
One is the, well, I'll see if I can find an easy way to explain it next time, because it's confusing to me. But, this really is, this is a beautiful book.
I worked in the automatic transmission department, rebuilding transmissions, and they had something, which came first, wisdom or invention? And I can't remember how it was, mother necessity, wisdom or invention, which came first, the invention or the wisdom?
Mm-hmm. Well, as someone who has been to the London School of Economics,
And to their
Them
gift
too.
shop.
I can tell you, I think wisdom is what helps you reach an invention. But you have to know that you need the invention. So,
Will you get a reward for it? Get monetary, because the way the economy is I've got something, well, I get my money back. Or make
Yes.
money.
it's